Hello, everyone. We are going to be analyzing the 7 games you should be considering in your Week 7 NFL Survivor pools, and it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee with the Fantasy Football Consultants, all alone this week. Unfortunately, Michael had to deal with a very serious family emergency, and we are wishing him and his family all the best. All right, since I don't have a co host this week, I'm looking to you guys to fill that role. Please enter in the comment section your thoughts this week. Tell us which teams you really like and why, and which teams you feel like you have to avoid. Quick comment, I'll put it on the screen now. This is the percentage of people who are subscribed who watched last week's NFL Survivor show. Folks, all those that are watching that are not subscribed, look, please do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. It should be at the bottom of this video. You always can hit our FFC logo, which will launch a screen, which will launch the subscribe button. All right, folks, let's get into it. Week 7, here are the 7 games that we're going to take a look at. Starting with Kansas City, 11.5-point favorite at home against Las Vegas. Then we have 2 touchdown favorites, New England at Tennessee and Denver at home against the New York Giants. Green Bay is a 6.5-point favorite at Arizona. Chicago, 5.5-point favorites at home against New Orleans. Pittsburgh, 5.5-point favorites at Cincinnati on Thursday night. And I can't believe they appear on this list. Cleveland Browns, finally, a favorite and a 3-point favorite at home against the Miami Dolphins. And I think we got to start at the top. The game which I expect to be fully chalk, which is Kansas City, right? So Kansas City is after a bad start. They were 0-2. They've won 3 of the last 4, including a dominating win last week against the Detroit Lions. Look, I like this game with Kansas City sweeping the Raiders last year, and most importantly, Pat Mahomes gets one of his key weapons from last year back, Rashee Rice, who served a 6-week suspension. He's playing in week 7. Now you say, well, why not pick Kansas City? Well, it's not because of the division rivals. That doesn't bother me as much. But what does bother me is pick popularity. I expect this to be by far the most popular pick. And you might say, well, why does that matter? It matters because if Las Vegas is able to pull off the upset and you faded this game, you pick another team, man, are you really set. You might think future value is a good reason to avoid picking Kansas City, but I disagree with that. They really don't have, as good as Kansas City is, they don't have a lot of future value. They don't have a really good game until week 6, in which they face at Tennessee. So here's what I'd like to do. Definitely Kansas City is something a team that people should consider. I will throw in the fact that if you play in one of those weird leagues where you have to play a team that plays on Thanksgiving Day, Kansas City is at Dallas. So I understand that, maybe that is a week in which you might want to save Kansas City for. But outside of that, they're looking like a pretty darn good pick. Let's see if there's any of these other games that can match Kansas City, right? Is there a reason why that we might want to, given that they're so high in pick popularity, that we might want to fade Kansas City? So let's take the analysis. The first contestant up is New England, who is a 7-point favorite at Tennessee. Now, we just talked about maybe you wait to pick Kansas City when they face Tennessee at Tennessee. Well, New England plays at Tennessee this week, and this is not any ordinary game for New England. Head coach Mike Grable, he goes back to Tennessee, and he wants to win. So in Tennessee is one of the weakest teams. Look, I'll just say it. I think Tennessee's the worst team in the NFL. And I can hear you guys say it now. But wait a minute, the New York Jets haven't won. Aren't they obviously the weakest team in the NFL? Well, Tennessee is 1-5, but I don't know if they've won a game. I say that because Arizona absolutely should have beat them and basically gave the game away to Tennessee, and that's their only win. On the other hand, the Patriots are playing good ball. They have won 4 of their last 5. Admittedly, 3 of those 4 opponents were not strong teams. Miami, New Orleans, and Carolina, although Carolina's looked half decent lately. The most impressive in that was, hey, New England won in Buffalo. So I like this game, especially if you somehow have already used Kansas City. However, the future value is real for New England. Not far away either. They host Cleveland in week 8, and they host the New York Jets in week 11. So, to be honest, I have to say no on this if you have Kansas City available, because I think New England has more future value than Kansas City. So, and I feel more comfortable with Kansas City beating the Raiders at home than New England. So let's keep searching. How about Denver, 7-point favorites? Call me crazy and put it in the comments section if I am crazy. But for a team to pick against, all of a sudden I'm a little nervous about the New York Giants, right? I felt really good to pick against the New York Giants once Malik Neighbors was out for the rest of the year. But I don't know. Jackson Dart looks better than Russell Wilson at quarterback, even though he's Dart's the rookie, and Cam Skattebo is looking impressive in the backfield. And most importantly, they looked great last week when they played on Thursday night at Philadelphia to pull off the win. And by the way, since they played Thursday night last week, the Giants are coming off a mini bye. So a lot of reasons to be concerned about the Giants. What about Denver? Well, Denver is coming back from London. So I don't know if that is a concern of yours. And they have some decent future value. They also play at home against Las Vegas in week 10, which isn't far away. So for all those reasons, I think I'm out on Denver this week. So let me know what you think. Maybe you have a little bit more confidence in Denver than I do. By the way, a lot of people already have used Denver, so for most people, this isn't even an option. Speaking of teams that you probably already used, Green Bay is a 6.5-point favorite at Arizona. A lot of people used Green Bay last week. But let's be honest, folks. After a very impressive first two games of the season, Green Bay just hasn't looked that good. They lost to Cleveland. Cleveland's only win all year. They tied Dallas, who hasn't looked very good. And after their bye, they didn't really dominate Cincinnati. Cincinnati was in that game for most of the time. So they don't give me a lot of confidence. They face a Arizona team that admittedly is very injured. Marvin Harrison now has a concussion, their wide receiver. Both of their top 2 running backs are out, and their quarterback, Kyler Murray, is out. Although I got to say, Jacoby Brissett looked pretty good last week. So this game is in Arizona. I'm out. I'm not. I can't go with Green Bay. Let's keep moving on. What about Chicago, who's a 5.5-point favorite at home against New Orleans? Now, look, let's be clear. This is the best game that Chicago has for the rest of the season. Not a lot of future value. And Chicago has played pretty well. You've got to admit, they've won 3 straight games, although 2 of those games have been super close with razor thin 1-point wins against Las Vegas and the Washington Commanders. I don't know, folks. Can we pull the trigger here, Chicago? I mean, it's easy to say, but do you really want to put your survivor life on Chicago? It's got to be a situation where you feel like your league is doubling up picks late, you got to save Kansas City, and you want to go for it this week with Chicago. Because make no mistake, the chances of Chicago winning against New Orleans is significantly less, in my opinion, than Kansas City winning against Las Vegas. But I have to say they're a consideration this week, so let's table that game for a possibility. Pittsburgh is also 5.5 point favorites at Cincinnati. Look, I'm out. I'm not picking this game. Number one, it's a Thursday night game. I hate Thursday night games, and I looked smart to fade the Giants and Philadelphia on Thursday night last week. Just because of the short rest, it adds to the volatility, and historically, I feel like we've had more upsets on Thursday night than normal. But probably the biggest reason not to pick Pittsburgh, if you're like, look, Eric, they can beat Cincinnati. I'm sure they can beat Cincinnati. Then fine. Wait. Just wait a couple weeks when they host the same Cincinnati Bengals, and then you can go with Pittsburgh that particular week. That is in week 11, so it's not even that far away. All right, the last team on the list, Cleveland, 3-point favorites at home against Miami. And in Survivor, it's just as important to know who you're picking against than who you're picking for. So do you want to pick against a 1-5 team that has a lefty quarterback whose one win is, was pretty darn fluky? Wait a minute. I'm not talking about Miami. I'm talking about Cleveland. Look, they're 1-5. Their one win is against Cleveland, against Green Bay, and Green Bay absolutely should have won that game. They were lining up for the game-winning field goal as with very little time left, and it got blocked, and they were able to hit a field goal to win it themselves. And it was a very short field goal, so they should have made it. So anyway, I just have to issue a notice of no confidence in this particular game. If you feel like you must go outside of Kansas City, and maybe you don't want to pick New England, and because you need to save teams for future value, I would rather go with Chicago at home against New Orleans rather than Cleveland at home against Miami. That's just me. Love to hear in the comment section what you guys think. So what's my final suggestion for a pick this week? Well, was I enticed to go off Kansas City? No. I think Kansas City is the way you go, and I hate going with the pick with high pick popularity. But here's the thing. I have so much more confidence in Kansas City this week over any other team, and the fact that Kansas City simply doesn't have a lot of future value. You got to wait till week 16. I'm going with Kansas City. Now, if you feel like you must save Kansas City because you play and you're using them in a league where you got to pick a Thanksgiving game or some crazy reason like that, or more likely, if you've already used Kansas City, then my recommendation this week, and it's a tough one, do you want to really go out on a limb and save future value and go with Chicago? I'd go that route if you're in a league where it's a huge league, you're sure it's going to go the entire time, and you need to double up picks, and you need to save New England. Otherwise, if that was the case, I would go with New England. I have a high level of confidence that New England's going to win at Tennessee. Anything's possible in the NFL. Any team can beat any team, but I feel relatively good about New England. So if you can't pick Kansas City for whatever reason, it's against your religion, or you've already used them, then I would opt for New England. Unless, like I said, you really need to save their future value, then I would go Chicago. All right, that is week 7 in a nutshell. I wish you guys an exciting week 7. If you haven't yet, please hit that red subscribe button. The button is on the screen right now. And until week 8, let's hope we all survive. We'll see you next time.